time, if the candidates would please make their way back to the stage. Okay, again, we're going to be drawing names at random to see who's going to be asking questions. If your name is drawn, I would ask you to come to the microphone. Don't take the microphone out of the stand, please. Just leave it in there. If you need to adjust it for height, that's fine, or we'll help you. Okay, if you could keep the questions brief, maximum 30 seconds. As I said, it's their show, they're the stars. The answers will be brief. I ask you, keep them, under a minute. Okay, that will get the maximum number of questions. You can ask a question to an individual candidate or to a group of candidates. And that means candidates for Reeve or a specific ward. I also ask that you keep the questions respectful, because if anything is disrespectful, defamatory, or inappropriate, we'll have to stop you. That's not fair to the people who are running for office. The first question, Doug Kivenhoven.
I never win a lottery.
You just did. And our second is Bill McGrath. So Doug?
All right, this is to the Reeves and the Wingham candidates. Can I do that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you think that the BIAs, which are funded by the business members and commercial property owners and not the general taxpayers, are beneficial to the communities? Why or why not?
Pauline, is there an order?
The order that you spoke in this evening. So that would be Bernie, Neil, and Steve.
And I would go first again.
Of course, that's how it works.
I think they're very beneficial. As a council member, I sit on the BIA for Wingham. There's so many things. Everyone expects the town works department and the town folks to do everything possible. It's just not possible. We couldn't afford to have enough people around to do it. The volunteers that are with the BIA and the BIA that step forward, they do so many things, the lightings, the Christmas tree lightings, the decorations. I can't even think of how many things they do, and I've enjoyed sitting there with them for 4 years. But it is very beneficial for the BIAs and all volunteers to step forward. We do not have enough staff. It is impossible to hire enough staff to do everything you see. You folks should thank the BIA for what they do. Thank you.
Most definitely, our BIAs are very valuable. They provide the guidance, and through the BIA, you're talking to like-minded individuals. They put together programs that benefit all the businesses, and in that, it's a connection that basically it really moves things forward, and I think even pulls some shy business owners into a role of stepping forward and making bigger statements within the community. And thank you very much to the BIA members for all the work they do.
Steve?
I believe the BIAs are important to both Wingham and Blythe. I don't agree with how they're funded. I don't think we need an arch project. I don't think we need rope lights. I think the Wingham BIA should follow the Blythe BIA's lead. And according to the last council meeting, the BIA's raised all their money from private donations and whatnot for their light project, and if the Wingham BIA wants to do something similar, I would fully support that. Thank you.
Okay, the Wingham candidates, Yolanda Ritzma-Taninga, Trevor Sipe, Rod Galbraith, Robert Harth, and Brent Mills.
I think the BIAs are incredibly vital to our community. The amount of volunteer hours that they put in to make our streetscapes look beautiful, the service that they do, they really speak to what this community is about, and it's about serving each other and working together as a team. And without strong local businesses in this community, we would not have a community. Our BIAs are vital to our sustainability long term.
Yes, the BIAs, I believe, are a vital. They're the foot soldiers on the ground of the businesses. They know what's important to them as business owners. They know what's important to bring businesses into town. We as councillors need to be more proactive to take their information and respect their decisions and figure out how we can support them. BIAs are as the most important part of economic development to the North Huron that we have. So I believe totally support them, and they are vital to the community.
Thank you.
Rod Galbraith. Yeah, I support the BIAs 100%, both in here and in Blythe. If you're a business owner, if you've ever owned a business, it's like a marriage. It's 24 hours a day. When you're done at work after 12 to 15 to 16 to 18 hours, and if you're a farmer, it is a business. When you go to bed at night, you dream about it. I always worked overtime when I was in business. I never got paid for it. But it's 24 hours a day, BIA vital to the energy, economic engine of our community. So I support it 100%. One quick word, I said if I ever stood up in front of a group this large in Wingham, I just want to say Alice Munro. Weren't we excited last year when she got the Nobel Prize? I'm just so excited about it.
Thank you. Robert?
Yes, I'd like to say that I do support the BIA as the heart of the community. They certainly do involve themselves in the community. They're the ones picking up garbage in front of their store. They have a pride about our community because they've chosen to build a business here. I'm a business owner as well. And what I would encourage members of the BIA is let's have a connection. Let's build this town together. You've already done a great job, and I applaud you for that. Let's connect up even more and help local jobs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Brent?
Yes, I believe that BIA is the meeting between the council and the town itself, the town businesses, and it's very important that we have such an active group of volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill McGrath, you have a question?
Thank you, Pauline.
Next, it will be Lisa Herndon.
My question is to Mr. Hills. I'd like to know how you're going to support and promote the town of Wingham for business, industry, volunteers, when for the last couple of years, everything that I've read, you have run the town of Wingham to the ground. It was the worst place in the world to live. We have the worst police department. We have the worst public works. Everything we seem to read has degraded the town. And I understand you are the publisher or one of the writers for the Wingham Free Press. I'd like to know how you're going to turn this around and support a town that you've criticized.
Well, I think the most important thing is to get our spending under control, and get taxes where they're supposed to be. And businesses and whatnot will follow. Until we tackle the root problems, I don't think we're going to move forward. And I don't think I've ever said we've had the best or worst police department. I'm not sure where you got that from. I don't agree with the price we're paying for them, but.
Okay, just a reminder, please, no heckling. It's not fair to the people answering or the people asking. After Lisa, it'll be Mark Foxton.
I'm just going to go for the easy one. Terry Brake, your platform states that you want to tar and chip or pave all the roads of East Wabanach. How do you anticipate doing that without increasing taxes, or what are we giving up?
From looking at the roads, they're not up to standards, so they haven't even met provincial guidelines, so something has to be done. And for paying a guy to drive around all summer to grade roads and put gravel down, and it's not a renewable resource, so we're going to run out eventually. So what are we going to do next? Go somewhere else and grab gravel and have that trucked in for costs that are going to far exceed tar and chipping? We already start tar and chipping, so you're not saying to tar and chip or to pave. It needs to be done. Roads need to be brought up to standards. Thanks.
Where are we finding the money?
Okay, that's an answer. Okay, Mark Foxton, and next would be Bruce Stainton.
The three candidates for brief. What do you see as North Huron's strengths, and how will you use those strengths to the betterment of this community?
Well, I've lived here pretty well all my life, and I can answer that pretty easy. It is the people. The people are our greatest strengths. You're here out here in droves today. Thank you for coming out. I've been on volunteer with a lot of you. I've seen this town from one end to the other. It is the people, and we will make this a great place, just as it is a great place right now.
Thank you, and I have to concur. It is the people. People are the best friends you'll ever get, so that the one thing, the people that we have, the ones that are going away to school, the ones that are coming back and trying to develop something new, I think that is one of our big strengths, because we have a bunch of broad thinkers that are coming back to our area. They're doing good jobs, and that is the strength, is those that can go outside the parameters of what mom or dad did. It's with the broadband capability that we have, I think we have a lot of new jobs that can be here within this next term of council, and it's because we are thank you.
Okay, Steve?
Our community's greatest strength, I believe, is the volunteers that show up, help clean Main Street, paint the fire hydrants, and whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you. And after Bruce, Jason Schiestel.
Okay, my question is to Mr. Hill. Your platform states you want to get rid of the Economic Development Department, all advertising you deem non-essential, and get rid of the BIA levy. How will this affect the business community? And since you only mentioned Wingham, would you do the same in Blythe?
I'm not very familiar with the Blythe BIA. What's your question? Again, sorry.
Your platform states you want to get rid of the Economic Development Department, all advertising you deem non-essential, and get rid of the BIA levy. How will this affect the business community?
The majority of the businesses in the BIA, well, they would no longer have to pay that levy anymore. The BIA is well funded now. The fact that they want to build an arch or spend money on rope lights to me, it seems like they're grasping at straws to justify their budget. And I don't see any benefit in those road lights or in that arch project. Thank you.
Okay, Jason Schistel, and after that, Gary Clausen.
My question is for the Reeve candidates. Where do you see North Huron in 5 years?
Jason, in open council, I put a business plan, I guess you'd call it together, a PowerPoint, and I showed everybody, all the towns around us, and the development that was going on, because those towns have their own industrial parks or business parks. I'm a firm believer in what they do is what we should be doing. It works for them. As we sit here, since I put that PowerPoint out, there are 6 new businesses going into Palmerston and into Listowel. We need our business park, and we are going to have it if I am Reeve, and we are going to grow. And it's a must.
I'm just sort of spinning a little bit. There's so many things, and that really we have to really work hard to try and maximize what people are wanting to do. And I'm just sort of losing myself in this. I think I'll just, please talk to me after on that one, Jason.
And Steve?
In 5 years, I'd like to see the vacancies on Main Street no longer be vacant, increase liquidity in our real estate market, which means more people are moving here and there's more demand. And I'd like to see Wingham and North Huron be one of the safest places to raise a family in Ontario. Thank you.
Okay, and our next questioner, Gary Clausen.
In business, it's directed to the Reeve candidates. In business, we often talk about productivity, small businesses, large businesses. How, as Reeve, as the leader of the municipal company, do you define productivity? But as important, how do you measure productivity of your council?
I firmly believe there's an equal place for all, whether it's big or small. When I had the dairy, and it was 30 years of my life, I had the last processing dairy in Huron County. It was the last processing dairy in southwestern Ontario. 450 people fell like state tight, and they said I couldn't win against the bigger companies. It never should have been a fight against the bigger companies and the smaller companies. There's room for all of us. Unfortunately, our provincial government decided big companies cannot fail, which means you have to get rid of little. There's lots of room for all of us. Thank you.
Measuring productivity depends whether you're an accountant or whether you're a literary person or where your specialty comes from. But accountability is being able to do those things that the majority of people are willing to spend the money to get it done. Big or small, I think there's enough statistics to state that intermediate size or small are the real secret of creating productivity, creating jobs, and I think that is where we want to really push. One big factory doesn't happen anymore. Thank you very much.
I would measure town staff and council's productivity by our tax rate, the state of our infrastructure, and if we start putting reserve funds away for the infrastructure, which we are behind about 2 million or so a year right now. Thank you.
Now our next question, Betty Ann Wall. Did you wish to ask it? You wrote it out.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Good evening, council members. I'd just like to know, are there plans to make Wingham more accessible to individuals with mobility problems, such as store entrances? As the population is aging, we don't want to lose anybody out of Wingham.
Excuse me, were you addressing that to the Reeve and the Wingham?
Councillors.
And the Wingham ward?
Yep.
But not the Blythe
Well,
or?
whoever. It applies to everybody, so, but I think we need to go to maybe just Wingham to keep time down. Does that sound good?
That sounds good to me. How do you feel?
If I understood that question, it was, it is mandated by Ontario that we can make everything accessible, and we are moving towards that. Every time you see a project in North Huron, you will see it becomes accessible. Right on the main street, you'll notice the beeping, you'll notice the grids on the floor. Everything we do is towards accessibility, because we are all getting older.
That having had both knees replaced and a hip replaced, I know what some of the accessibility problems are and what it feels like if you can't be. The thing of it is, we are mandated by the provincial government. There's dates in there. The Huron County Accessibility Committee worked very closely with the town staff and the planning for the renewal of Main Street. Sometimes you can get at least part of it done. Not always can you get it all done. We try and do the best we can, but sometimes you can only push a business so far or else you don't have the business. And while I applaud accessibility, there is the thing of viability for the businesses as well. Thank you.
Steve?
Many of our sidewalks are not passable currently, even in the summertime, on mobility scooters and wheelchairs. Last winter, I saw someone pushing a wheelchair down Josephine Street because the sidewalks were blocked. I think those are important issues. And I would also like to encourage the businesses on Josephine Street to make them wheelchair accessible, because there's only a few now that aren't, but it'd be nice if they were. Thank you.
And the Wingham Ward candidates, and I think I'm going to open this question to everybody because we're okay for time and accessibility is important. So the Wingham people, Yolanda first.
As previously mentioned, accessibility is a very important issue, especially with an aging population that we are facing. And as previously said as well, it's very much comes from the provincial government as to what we can and how we can move forward with the funding that we're given. And I think if we continue to work together and helping each other and making sure that we are working as a team to get everyone out and about, that's helpful, because making human connections on a daily basis for our seniors is incredibly important for them, along with those who have some challenges in mobility.
So I'm not going to repeat what the other councillors and the Reeves have talked about, the Municipal Act and what the Ontario government legislates, but what I am going to suggest is that businesses need the support from a council in order to gain accessibility to their stores. Those stores were there long before these councillors were here and the councillors before that, but we need to work together because businesses need those development, but they also need our support in order to figure out how they can do it outside the box. It can't be just build a ramp or build a stair or whatever. It needs to be figured out how it can be supported by the municipality as well as the town. Thank you.
In terms of accessibility, I drove a wheelchair special needs bus for 5 years, and I'll just say this, it's compatible with successful business to be accessible, period. And can't be done overnight in one day, but as the Reeves and our Reeve candidates have just pointed out, we're all going to get there one day, hopefully. Maybe we won't, but we probably will. I was in a grocery store the other day, and one of our seniors was driving one of those little four-wheel carts. He was getting vegetables, and I said, "Gee whiz, I didn't know that they could bring them into the grocery store." I think it's a good thing. I'm all for it 100%. So it has to be economically viable. Smart business will accommodate. Thank you.
Robert Hart.
I do already believe that there is adequate access for the handicapped, the impaired, to local businesses, and I think a lot of that is contributed to small businesses. And I know the struggle financially for a small business to take on a lot of finance to accommodate these things. So I think it's very important to support the local BIA and small business and our local industry so that we can together connect and bring more wealth to the table. The pie is only getting smaller continually, and we can't cut the pieces any thinner for each one of us. We should all prosper. So let's focus on bringing jobs to the area and bringing wealth to this community so that everybody can benefit and so these needs can be met. Thank you.
And Brent.
Yes, I believe that right from the sidewalks right to your front doorstep on your local business should easily be wheelchair accessible, and I deal with it 2 or 3 times a year, and I know what it's like. A few years ago I did a Mennonite school, and they thought they were just going to take and put steps up to the front door, and they found something different when the inspector got there. It's nice to see. We have to be readily acceptable to these wheelchair ramps, and we have to have them that most of these businesses can easily afford and maintain. Thank you. I know there's some places downtown that they almost can't do that.
And now I'm going to open that question up to the candidates for Blythe Ward, starting with Brock. And then Brad, and Bill, and Lori.
We're still talking about accessibility.
Accessibility.
I agree this is a very important topic, and I think it should be combined with another topic, and that is accessibility to employment. I think we have to look at accommodation as another factor. I think we should be proactive in finding gainful employment and meaningful employment for people without regard of their physical condition to whatever extent is possible. So I think we need to look at both of those topics so that people can get into the workplace and on a daily basis, and they can also be accommodated by whatever devices are required in their particular problem. Thanks.
Brad?
Yes, that is a pretty good question. Back in 2001, I had a store open on Main Street, and there was no way of making that accessible for people. It's hard to even do with crutches, let alone putting wheelchairs up there. So it's going to be tough to get the stairs fixed, let alone bathrooms. A lot of the stores in town, the bathrooms are down the stairs for people to get down there. That's something we really got to look at, because it is. There's a lot of people in this town in wheelchairs, in mobility scooters, on crutches, and it's tough for them to get around. Because Mr. Hill said that I've seen people down my street, on Center Street, having to go on the middle of the road because the sidewalks are either in the summertime they're too roughed up because they're not really there, or the 6 feet of snow, and I'm learning from the town putting snow on the sidewalks. Now, if they didn't put the snow on the sidewalks, I'd be glad to clean my sidewalk, but I'm not taking 6 feet of slush off my sidewalk.
Time.
Thanks.
Accessibility is definitely an issue that needs to be carefully watched. We don't have to beat on the Ontario government regulations. However, this is an opportunity where our BIAs in Wingham and Blythe both can take the leadership to sit down together and determine what they need, bring it to council, and council to support them. I think that although we've seen dwindling funds from governments, the following year is going to be a year where we need to watch carefully. There's going to be a lot of money flowing out of Ottawa to buy your votes. And you're going to see a lot of money flowing out of Queen's Park to buy your votes for the Liberal Party. And that's where council is going to have to stay on top of it and make sure that we take advantage of every opportunity when they offer us money, not for your votes, but to get those accessibility grants and any others that we can. Thank you.
And Lori?
Yes, accessibility is an issue. These people don't choose to be in a wheelchair. They don't choose to use a walker. We need to encourage all businesses to help these people out. Look towards the provincial and federal governments. There's always money being handed out. Ask for it. I think council should work hand in hand with all the business owners and see what we can do for these people. They deserve to get around our community too.
Okay, and the East Wawanosh candidates, James Campbell, James Woodley. We'll continue on that trend.
I believe this is a question for BIAs, whether it be in Blythe or whether it be in Wingham. But I think they have, if there's an issue, they need to bring it to council. As far as East Wawanosh goes, our sidewalks are cleared every day. We have all kinds of room for wheelchairs.
Thanks, Jim. That's what I needed. On accessibility, what we need to do is listen to the people, what they need. I have a business, we revamped it a few years ago. They said how we had to get our wheelchair ramps, how we could get them in the doors. Our seniors, because we're an auto repair shop, they come in. And I said, you know, what can we do for you? How can we make you comfortable? We've got chairs, they go in the door, they got someplace to sit down. This is what they need. So we can sit there and say, well, they need ramps, the sidewalks, this, but really what we do is find out what they need and put it in place.
Again, like Mr. Campbell, I think it's a BIA. It's more of a residential problem than it is for the rural area. And if you start giving out money, who do you give it to and where do you start and stop? So I think if you have a good business, you'll definitely want the people to get in there. So probably you can take care of that yourself. Thank you.
Tim Walden.
I guess I would agree with Jim, our sidewalks are tip-top. But on a more serious note, I've heard several people, including my wife that does a lot of work here in Wingham, complain about the condition of sidewalks and roads in Wingham. And as I mentioned earlier, we need to prioritize the capital work that's going on so that when we're doing road reconstruction, we're ensuring that we're putting in curbs that accommodate wheelchair accessibility. As a couple of the other candidates said, there quite often is provincial funding available for this. We can incorporate that into our capital spending as well as potentially make some of that money available to business owners, as it is quite a cost to put in some of these accommodations. Thanks.
Okay, Ray.
I'm with the gyms, I guess. Our sidewalks are good, but no, it's very important. So it is. I think that the problem can be solved. I understand, I might be corrected wrong, that all new buildings, it's mandated by the government already do this, but I think that the municipality and the business can partner and get any funding that's available through the government and solve this, try and solve it. Thank you.
And Terry.
I believe that the federal government gives out grants to redo houses and everything else. I know I suffered a stroke about 8 years ago, and I was getting so much money to put a ramp into my house. So I believe that the federal government, provincial governments actually do help out. So I encourage people to look at that and talk to municipalities and federal governments to get the money from them. Thank you.
And our final question of the evening is Dave Tiffin.
This is directed to Mr. Hill. You refused to supply the 2 papers in North Huron with a picture so that voters could better identify you as a candidate and the blogger of the Wingham Free Press. How does that not go against your platform promise of transparency?
I believe my picture's probably already been taken anyway. But transparency deals with how government makes decisions, how they operate, and whatnot. It's not about their personal lives. Thank you.
Okay, we still have a few minutes left. I'm going to ask if any of the candidates would like to just give a very brief summary. You know, make it 1 minute. And we'll go in the same order we've been going in all evening. Bernie.
Thank you, Pauline. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. This does show true spirit of this town, this township, North Huron. I'm looking forward to continuing the next 4 years. A lot of things that I've started in the first 4 years. I have never been afraid to speak out. Never been stopped from speaking either. I speak for you folks, and all of you know me, most of you know me. I'm a kitchen table guy. I'll come to your home and sit down and have a chat. Anytime, call me. Thank you.
Basically, I would like to go back to Jason's question. I'm not sure where we'll be, but I think the next 5 years, the rate of change and the change of our young people developing new jobs, especially with the ability of fiber optic cable, we will be surprised. And that's why my head spins with all the things that can be done and will be done. And we've got sharp young people. I have confidence in them, and those jobs, those incomes will create the necessary money that we need to keep the services. And when we have services, they cost.
Steve?
If the people of North Huron want to trust me with the position of Reeve, I will try to implement all the changes I've listed in my platform. I believe so strongly that these things can be fixed. I will do it for free, provided those funds are directed to area charities and service groups. The $50,000 over the 4-year term that would normally be paid to the Reeve will be directed to area service groups and food banks. So even if I fail to implement my platform, our community service groups and charities will be stronger, and there'll be more food in our food banks. If honored with the Reeve position, I guarantee I'll fight to implement the changes I believe are necessary to achieve 100% transparency and to cease all non-essential spending by the Corporation of North Huron. Remove lead pipe from our infrastructure, bring our infrastructure up to current standards, and for fire suppression systems to be in the facilities that require them. Thank you, and I'd appreciate your support.
Okay, the Blythe Ward candidates, starting with Brock.
This may surprise you, but I'm going to support Blythe. Blythe has a tradition that when the community comes up with a great idea they want to accomplish, they come to council and they come with a plan and they come with some funds and they say, we need a little bit of help. Other communities, not in North Huron, they go to the council and say, do this for us, do that for us, do something else for us. We have a $10 million project starting in underway, and North Huron has made a contribution to it, but at each stage of redeveloping Memorial Hall, that committee will put the funds in the bank to cover whatever project has to be done in the next stage. And that's a very good way. It's volunteerism, it's fundraising from the community, it's people believing in their community. Thank you.
Yes, I believe in Blythe. I've been in this area for 14 years now, and I've seen Blythe grow quite a bit. And I'm into volunteering. I volunteer at the Salvation Army, and I've been there for over a year now, and I like it. And if there's any groups in Blythe that I can get into and help with, I'd be glad to do it, because I don't mind, and I like to see North Huron grow bigger and better than it is. But right now, we need employment for everybody. We need to get that cross-border water fixed and going, so they have the land, we have the water. Let's get together and get it going at a fair economical rate so we can get employment in North Huron. Thanks.
Bill?
The future actually is going to be driven by people like yourselves, and this is what this community needs, both North Huron, Blythe, or Wingham, and that's the voters themselves, you the taxpayers, to come forward and start telling us what you want, as opposed to having council say what they want to do. This is your community, they are your buildings, they're your roads, but we also have to remember we need to proceed with common sense. There is a great demand to go and say we're going to pave roads here or do this, but we have to think carefully about how we spend our money. It's limited resources. They will become more limited in the future. Council is going to be very hard pressed to do many of the projects that they want to proceed with or would like to proceed with. So we have to come forward as taxpayers and dig a little deeper or volunteer. However it is we do it, we have to come together to make it work. And I think this community can do it. Blythe may be a good example that the people there have done this. So I encourage everybody to participate as much as you can in your community. Okay, it's ours for the future. Thank you.
Lori?
I'd like to see North Huron unite as one. We're not three separate wards. Let's all get along. We need to do something with our ghost town. We've got to encourage our kids to stay here. We're dying. We got to get open for business, bring business in, and see what we can do. And if we all work together, it'll work out just fine. Thanks.
Okay, and the East Wabanach, starting with James Campbell.
Last night I attended the fowl supper in Belgrade. And if I can use the fowl supper as an example for our community, there is a community that works together, strives together for the best of their community. If we put that together in our community, the Township of North Huron, we will be bigger, we will be better, and we'll work better together.
James Woodley.
Excuse me. Well, I think North Huron, we need to go to the world and look at the business people and say, we're here, come. We've got the land, we've got the people, and we'll have good paying jobs. Our families will stay together, and plus our taxes will hopefully will lower, which we definitely need to draw these businesses in here. And above all, we need to work with our neighboring communities so that we can all work together, because let's face it, we're all in this together. We're all either going to be winners or losers.
And James Taylor.
We're going to have some hard decisions to make. The next council made up of these people. But I can remember being on council before. It wasn't all hard work. We had a bit of fun too, didn't we, Minnow? So I thought I'd end it with a little story I heard. Apparently with the World Series coming on and the playoffs, Obama, he went to one of the games, and of course he had his blocks there, and the First Lady was there, and he was waving to the crowd, and his aide came up and whispered something in his ear. And he said, "Oh no, I could never do that. I could never do that." Aide went away again and spoke to some of his propaganda people and come back and said, "They want you to do it. They really do. Your ratings are down." So then he grabs hold of the First Lady and threw her out of the box. And the aide says, "What'd you do that for?" He said, "That's what you wanted me to do." "No, it wasn't. They wanted you to throw out the first pitch."
Jim Walden?
I got nothing I can talk about. I'm kind of speechless after that. As far as the citizens of East Wawanosh and the greater North Huron, I think one of the biggest issues is curbing tax increases. We need to keep that under control. Another thing for East Wawanosh is ensuring that the bylaws that are passed promote responsible agriculture. We don't want to put undue restrictions and extra costs on agriculture. It's a slim bottom line to begin with, and the money that's created in agriculture is spent in these communities. I did want to make mention that as I'm driving my 4 children all over southwestern Ontario, literally from one end to the other, and as I drive back into our communities, I'm proud to be part of this community. I won't use a local example, but I've been up to Chatsworth, for example, this summer. Every store, on the main street is boarded up. And you come back to the towns of Wingham and Blythe, and it's a vibrant community where it's attractive for people to move into. But in order to maintain that, we need to encourage more business and industry to come here so we can create jobs to keep the younger generation here, to keep it a vibrant community. Thanks.
And Ray?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of it covered tonight, so it's probably what I'm saying, maybe repeat, but all of North Huron is a great place to live, work. I had a comment from an older gentleman the other day, and he said, he was talking about money. He said to me, there's 2 things that you cannot buy with money, and that is health and time. So let's get together. We can make this work, the sooner the better. Work together. Thank you.
And Terry?
I believe we all have to work as one community and work all together with everybody, and so it'll only make it a stronger place. We moved here 5 years ago, and I love this place. I call it home, and I'd like to see it keep growing and keep going forward. So we all have to work together. Thank you.
And thank you very much. And the Wingham Board candidates, starting with Yolanda.
I believe in this community. This is home. Let's continue to work on our past successes to ensure long-term sustainability. I'm a new voice with your perspective, so let's start some conversations, and please feel free to connect with me. I will listen. Thank you for coming out tonight.
I just have one thing. This township only gets better with the ratepayers. No matter who sits up here, no matter who sits anywhere, the ratepayers are what make this town and this township. So we have to work together. We also have to be sensible with it. accountable, open-minded, and a fresh perspective. That's what I bring. Thank you.
Rod Galbraith, in case you forgot, you're trying to do your ballot tonight. Three things I've already stated. First, front and foremost, fiscal responsibility, being scrupulous with your money. It's not my money. It doesn't belong to any of the candidates out here, except the little contribution that we all put in. Honesty, integrity in the business that you do. When you say yes, gotta mean yes. When you say no, you're gonna have to take the hits when you can't do everything for everybody, and we can't. We know we can't. Sound financial responsibility. Listening to the business owners that are here now. They know the trade, they know what's needed, they know what to bring business, what it's going to take to bring business in. So you have to listen, you have to adapt, and you have to react when you can afford to. Same way that they operate their business. Thirdly, infrastructure is going to be the biggest bill we're going to be hit with over the next 4 years. So that's going to take a strategy, a lot of hard work. Thank you very much. Rod Galbraith.
Robert Hart.
When I decided to run for the council of North Huron, I asked myself, what do I want to see in a councillor? And what came to mind was my great-grandfather and his patriotism, not only to his country, but to his local community. He immersed himself in local community, and that, I think, patriotism goes along with public service. And if I ask myself, looking across the council, whether it's East Wabanach, whether it's Blythe, whether it's North Huron, what would I want from a councillor? I would want somebody who is patriotic to the community, someone who stood strong for the community, and also could look anybody in the face and say, I'm with you, I'm not against you. And that comes to how money has been expended. Council, there is a motion called motion to table. If there is an item being brought up and there's not enough detail, I will make a motion to table it. But I need a second motion to table, and that's where I urge those in other ridings to vote responsibly for a councillor that you believe is going to be the best patriot for your community and the community of this council, so that there can be a second motion to table and the facts can be measured. And so responsible spending comes across the board. Thank you.
I do believe that two things we really need to do in this township, and the bottom line, we have to worry about our infrastructure, and we have to get things straightened out for employment in this town. We really need to work on both of those, and I'm ready, willing, and able to talk with anybody over this. Thank you.
And that concludes the speeches from the candidates. I'd like to thank all of you. You did great presentations. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank everyone who asked questions. I'd like to thank the crowd for being here. It's a huge crowd. Thank you so much, and most of all, thanks to the Legion for hosting this. Thank you again.